All right. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today on our podcast. I am super excited and honored to have Matt DiPalma here with us today. And I would go into this whole long history of what I know about Matt, but I'm going to let him use his own words. But very quick as an intro, we're here today. We're business owners. We're here in Athens. And our number one goal, which you'll hear this theme throughout our entire time, is to help encourage and inspire and help entrepreneurs start and launch businesses and current business owners grow their business. And that's why we're here. I know Matt has a passionate heart for it. I do as well. And I'm just super excited and honored for this opportunity. So without further ado, Mr. Matt DiPalma, thanks for being here. Thanks for being on the podcast. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Matt DiPalma, originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Pretty much raised there, moved down to Georgia in the late 90s and started my first company, a landscape company, in 1996 in the area. Then in 1999 started a residential garbage company in the area, which was pretty crazy and wild, and have grown those businesses out and taken those things from that to just helping other people and getting involved in other companies and getting more diversified and enjoying it, doing stuff that you really enjoy.
Awesome. So Matt, maybe being strategically humble. So I'm going to I'm going to take a different approach. This landscape company that he's referring to is College Pro Landscaping here in Athens, and the trash pickup company he's referring to is AAA Sanitation here in Athens. So these are not just, he didn't just start these yesterday and they're just getting off the ground. These are major landscape and trash pickup companies here in Athens. And I may be stealing a little bit of the thunder here, I just wanted to, because some people might be wondering, wait, Athens, a landscape, what is, Matt?
Yeah.
So I'm just getting that out in the open here.
So we started out with the landscape company started out, I started both companies with a pickup truck, a trailer, a lawnmower, and a weeder and an edger. And just went to work, went and did every job I could for the customers that I could gather up at the time, and we have grown that to around 17 or 18 trucks that are cutting grass every day, crews that are cutting grass.
Wow. And
around 17 to 18 construction crews that are installing plants, irrigation. We're a full service landscape company. We're very proud of it in the area. We've built a brand and really have grown that out over the years, and been a lot of ups and downs and a lot of time spent there. And at the time when I started the landscape company, really wasn't sure how to make that work year round. So went into just looking for a recession-proof industry, and garbage was easily able to get into back in the late 90s here in this area. So started the residential garbage company, and didn't know if they were going to make it or fail and be successful, but been very fortunate and blessed to grow them out over the years and everything. We're operating around 14 garbage trucks every day in the area, doing residential waste, picking up recycling and trash, as well as the landscape company in the area and all. And as Bobby has helped me over the years tremendously with his company, Bipper Media has helped us with the new age technology, I would say. And I'm going to blow Bobby's horn a little bit here, who's small little shop, and seen his little sign says coming out of the restaurant, which is still in Athens here and everything. Walked out and it says Bipper Media, advance your SEO and advance your online presence. And I thought it was so great. There was never anybody in the building though. Never anybody in the building. So I finally looked the guy up and got in touch with him, and he was like, yeah, man, let's sit down. And boy, what you showed me right out the gate was just amazing to me, the things that you can do with your company to help grow businesses. And now I mean, as well as I do, I value what you guys do even more because the world has changed so much from the 90s to now.
Yeah.
And everybody's online. Everybody's doing it. I mean, everybody's got to have a pod, got to have a blog. Now we're doing blogging and adding these letters and these words and filtering. And we're seeing positive results in the uptick in the online presence because, I mean, it's different because when I started, everybody did everything by the phone book. Remember the phone book?
Yes.
The phone book was...
And I love you sharing stories about your phone book days.
Phone book was...
You were like the king of...
The king. Oh, man.
Book.
We had a little tiny ad back in the day.
Yeah.
And that was like a big expense. And then you were like, all right, and then next year we're making a little more money. Let's get a little bit bigger. And then you got to like a quarter page or a half page. And then if you got to the full page and somebody, I mean, when the book came out, everybody would rush in there to see who did what for the next year because you could never change it.
Just out of curiosity, what did those full page ads run back then? What were they charging for that?
I mean, it's hard for me to recall, but it was thousands of. I mean, I remember the small little ad was like $800 or $900 a month in the ad, and then as you grew, and then they started to add color to the books.
Oh yeah.
And then when they added color, that was a big game changer. But then you could only have like 2 colors. You could only have green, white, black. Those were like the 3 colors. Then they added red in there because they figured they could mix the dyes.
Yeah.
And then when we got to, in the end, we had half-page ads in the phone books, and I really wish I had saved those books because it's such a memory,
vintage at this point.
Well, it's just funny because I look back and I find old files now and old discs of where we burned our pictures for stuff and everything, and like I found a picture of our very first garbage truck we ever bought.
Yeah.
I found the first lawn care truck we ever bought, and you remember those things so much because that was the first step. It's like how did you start? How did you start yours? How did you start Bipper? I mean, was it in your house?
Yeah, right out of my house. Corner of my bedroom, actually, on a lampstand.
On a lampstand.
Not much bigger than this right here, actually.
Then when you got into the, getting an office space, that was a big leap of faith.
Yeah, that was a huge leap.
I mean, I remember moving from the pickup truck and trailer and seeing this used landscape truck right up here off of 106 and just being like going in there and talking to the guy. And the memories we have of just working on the truck and we thought we were big time in it back then. But I mean, the phone book was everything to everybody. Then you started to see people just not do the phone book anymore.
Right.
And it was so weird. It was like, and then the phone book prices started to come down more and more because print was just dying.
Yeah.
And people that have been in the industries for a long time, they'll remember that because at the end of the day, I'm in the service industry and that's what we do. So everybody wanted to find you was in the phone book. Right. And the bigger your ad was, the more you would stand out. That was the whole thing. Yeah. Nobody really went to the web and looked you up. You didn't really have, web pages, I don't think they really came into play heavily until like 2004, 2005.
Right. Yeah.
And that's when people were like, you gotta have a website, man. You gotta have the .com.
Well, that goes back to the times where I would be approached about building a website, early 2000s, which is crazy because Google officially launched in the late 90s, 98, 99.
Really?
So it took, a couple of years for that to really become mainstream.
Yeah.
And then, like you're saying, now everyone's like, what's this thing? Google, I need a website because that's what gets me in Google. So
and then trying to navigate that and thinking you could do it on your own is what we all thought for the longest time. Was like, how did that guy get to the top and everything? And then after the first time I met with you, and you're like, that person's paying to be at the top of that and everything. And it was like, what? Yeah, man, you can pay and you can be at the top, but that's not necessarily where you want to be and everything. And it's funny how you remember those like first customers or getting, the first times of just meeting people. And I remember my first really big job in Athens, and a homeowner called me up and said that they knew somebody that knew me, and they had this tree that was dead in their yard. And the woman said, when I come back, I want the tree gone, and I want the largest tree you can find. Well, I was nervous. I was, and I went and looked for the tree, And the nursery said, well, we can get you one tree, it'd be like $2,300, or we can get this other tree that'd be like $2,800 just to buy the tree. Back then, that was a lot of money for a tree. Now people buy those trees like it's nothing anymore. It's so funny to see, but it was a really mature tree. I remember going to that customer and being like, I'm really not sure. I just want to run this by you. They're like, what did I tell you? Get me the biggest one you can. I will pay you in full when I get back from my trip.
Wow.
And I will never forget that. And that customer, they have passed on now, but to the day they died, they used my services.
Yeah.
And just when I thought we could not renovate any more in the yard, they'd be like, let's just start all over. And to this day, we still have a lot of customers that were the original starting customers. And when those customers call in, we still talk to, it's just so great when you have the original ones that helped you get started, that really took a leap of faith on you. Because, when you're in the service industry, that's what people are doing. They're taking a leap of faith until they really get to see what you can do for them.
Yeah, it's interesting. We still have clients at Bipper Media that were Bobby's client.
Yeah.
Before there was anything called Bipper Media,
right?
It was Bobby, and it's amazing that we still have clients that are with us like that.
I had 2 cell phones at one point when I first started. I had to carry 2 cell phones, one for each company, because I didn't have a secretary. I didn't have an office space. I didn't have any of that. It was me. I took the call in the field. You left a voicemail. I called you back at night. I set up the estimates. I did everything from fixing the equipment to pricing the jobs to everything. And it was really crazy. And I was very fortunate with my landscape company that one of my clients' tenants was I was mowing the grass at this office complex, and the tenant came out and was yelling at me because I was blowing the leaves and they were going up to the door. And I'll never forget it. And they came out and she was yelling at me, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I don't want to get fired. I don't want you to call the landlord. Then the next time I came around, she was just as nice as can be. And she owned a bookkeeping service. So I was asking her about bookkeeping because I was, trying to figure it out. I don't have a college degree.
Right.
I graduated high school. I was going to college for 2.5 years or so. Yeah. My father's a doctor and, second generation immigrant. So, he's you got to get it on your own, earn it on your own, this, that, and the other. And he went to some kind of seminar, and he came back and he says to me, why are you going to college? I said, well, you said I needed a college degree. You said I needed to have a college degree to fall back on. He said, man, I just went to a seminar. No, you don't need a college degree. Get out there and do what you're doing, man. Because when you get older, if you really keep it hard on it, you're going to be really successful and everything. And he was absolutely right. But so I was fortunate enough, back to what I was saying, is that this woman, Sheila, she says, oh, well, I said, well, I'm looking for help. She says, well, I have a teenage son and he needs a job. So he came to work for me, and he was a senior in high school at the time. And we just really connected and everything. And he had some knowledge on some things that I didn't, and I had some knowledge of things he didn't and everything. And he had always been a go-getter too and everything. And one day he just turned to me and said, man, I got this grass cutting thing. I can manage this crew. Go get us some more work. And he actually ended up turning into being a full-fledged partner in the business. Wow. And Jamie has been, his mom was Sheila. In the long run, Sheila became our office manager. Yeah. Jamie's my business partner. His grandfather, who has passed on, was our salesman that just didn't talk about people you get to meet when you're doing stuff. Right. This guy started out on the loading dock of Yellow Freight. Wow. And left the company as the president of the company back in the day. Wow. He didn't take no for an answer from anybody. You couldn't get past that front door, when you're trying to open up into a new business and get in the front door and talk to the decision maker. Mm-hmm. He would just go back, and because of him, he opened so many doors that helped build our reputation. And then now, Jamie's brother works for the company, and we have so many people that are brothers and cousins and uncles and sons that work for the company. And now my sons have actually started mowing grass after all these years for the first year first time ever. So you're right. It's amazing those first clients, but this, had the 2 cell phones. And when I had to change from 2 cell phones, and I was like, I'm just tired of carrying 2 cell phones, I literally had to leave the 1 cell phone turned on with a voice recording. It said, hey, this is Matt. If you're looking for me, please call this other number and everything and all. And sometimes still people do call the office and say, I tried to call your other number. It's like, that number's been turned off for 4 years.
So it's interesting going back, like I love the pictures that I see of AAA sanitation, the residential cans going all the way down an entire street, like the monopoly of AAA sanitation, and then the billboards of College Pro, and I see the trucks in our neighborhood. But I love how you mentioned all the way back in the beginning, you started it out of the back of a pickup truck, and then you said, which really resonates with me, all the way back then, you were everything. You were the sales guy, you'd cut the lawn, you picked up the truck. Like, there was no Matt and another, it was Matt all things. So
I used to pick up the trash starting at like 3 o'clock in the morning, leaving a pickup truck, and had a hydraulic dump trailer on the back of the truck, and would go out and pick up trash till like 7, 8, 9 o'clock. And anybody that was helping me would come to the house, and I would drop that trailer and pick up the lawn care trailer. And so many great stories, and so many great people that helped me get going in life. People did some of the things you would never see today. And I've told you these stories before. It's like a guy here, a local guy, used to be a little place here called Billy Batteries, and stopped in there one day, and we were trying to load those lawnmowers up into a hydraulic dump trailer, and it's a pretty tedious job. Stopped by and seen this guy, and I was looking at this nice little lawn care trailer with the gate and everything. And back then, that was like new to the world because everybody was getting in the industry and everything. And I didn't have the money. And the guy came and said, "What's up?" I said, "Well, I really like the trailer." He said, "Well, how much?" I said, "How much is it?" He told me, and I said, "Well," he said, "What's wrong?" I said, "I don't have it." He says, "What do you got?" I said, "Well, I got a couple $100. He said, "Will you come by every week and give me a little money towards it?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Put the trailer on your truck. Give me what you got. Come by every week. I see you running around. I've heard you're in town doing this hard, working hard and everything." And when I outgrew the first trailer and went to the second trailer, the guy bought the trailer back for exactly what I paid for it in the beginning.
Wow. And
put that towards the new trailer for me. Yeah. You just don't see that. And it was all done on a handshake.
So going back to those early days, like I can resonate with that. Like I said, the lamp stand literally in the corner of my bedroom, I started working on, not much bigger than this. Like going back to those times, that's really for all entrepreneurs.
It really is.
Like everyone who has any kind of success with their business, they have the origin story.
That's right.
You out of the back of the truck, me in the corner of my bedroom working off a lamp stand, those origin stories. But those are also really the dividing, that's really a lot of the dividing lines fall there. Like between people who make it through those early days and most, actually statistically speaking, most don't.
They quit.
They quit. They don't get beyond that. So taking you back, because I'm just curious, back in the days when it was just you working out of the back of your truck, and we'll get into my answer to this, but I want to ask you, what was your why? Like, why did you wake up at 3 a.m. yourself and work out of the back of a truck and do that, like the number of days or years that it took before things started growing to where it wasn't just you. But back then, what was your why at 3 a.m.? Like anybody who wakes up at 3 a.m. for anything has to have a reason to be doing that.
Yeah.
What would you say your why was that drove you in those early days?
I mean, that's a very broad spectrum. There was a lot of whys back then.
Yeah. I
mean, I wanted to be independent. I had worked for some people back in the day, and I had always worked for myself, kind of hustling and doing something for myself, whether it was splitting firewood and selling firewood. We used to, when I lived in the Northeast, it would snow, and the hospital would come on the news broadcast and say, "Hey, we need people to bring the doctors to the hospital." And we were running the doctors to the hospitals with snowmobiles and everything. So I think back then it was more of I really wasn't geared for college. I wasn't ever really big into school. And I'm not a heavy reader as far as a book, but just I don't know, the why I guess would have to be is that I just wanted to be successful. I wanted to be independent. I didn't want to have to ask anybody for what I was needing in life.
Yeah.
I just wanted to grind out, and there was just so many people that were laughing at me back then that in the beginning that were just like, everybody's cutting grass, man. There's not going to be successful. You're not going to be able to, doing a trash thing, man. Come on.
Right. Too many competitors.
Too much stuff there. So, I wanted to be independent. I wanted to be successful. I wanted to make good money. Yeah. I wanted to be able to provide. I wanted to have a family. I mean, I was 19 years old, 20 years old when I started.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of whys in my life back then.
Yeah.
The whys now, I've gotten a lot smaller.
Yeah.
So those are the types of things that, just drove me every day to say, just get out there and knock it out and go.
So being independent, being successful, I can resonate with those things because it's kind of in the ballpark of my why. A little bit different. I was in the military, I was in special ops, and that kind of world, it kind of wired my brain a certain way. So when I got married and got out of the military, I wasn't really wired for like normal civilian corporate world. I worked I worked in Walmart logistics. I did really well, advanced very quickly, mostly because I just showed up every day. In that world, if you show up every day, you're gonna excel very quickly. Right. But even that didn't pan out because my wife today, if you ask her, she'll say that Bobby is basically unemployable. That's the word that she uses. Like, don't try to hire him. He might do amazing for like a certain bit, but he'll be gone. Right. So unemployable. So, I had but a little bit different, but the same ballpark.
I think it's the same as for every entrepreneur that's really into it. Because my wife would say, I say back in the day, I say, if this thing doesn't work out, I can always go to work for somebody else. She's like, what, for a day? That's not going to work.
Yeah,
like,
you're unemployable.
You're not going to be able to
So
take
that's interesting. This idea with entrepreneurs really truly being unemployable. You want to be on the the spectrum of making, I guess, a bigger contribution. Right. A bigger meaning to actually creating jobs, not being dependent on just the job, but actually creating jobs, creating opportunity. Like now today between College Pro and AAA Sanitation, how many employees would you say?
We're about 150 to 175 people every day.
See,
works for those companies.
You think about that here in the Athens area, you've created 150 plus jobs.
Yeah, I don't, you say that, and somebody pointed that out to me one time a number of years back, and they said, you don't realize what you did, man. You don't realize what you're doing, but I have to attribute that to my business partner and I. We've always had the mentality of tunnel vision. Yeah. And that is, great. So a lot of people in our industries, you get a job, they're out there, I got a new job. I got this job. I'm going to take care of Mary's house. This, that, and that. Okay, great. Well, let's go see if we can get Tom to do business with us. Yeah. Let's see if we can get Bill to do business with us too. Just because you got married doing business with you, keep moving. So I never looked at it that way. But then the guy was like, you realize how much money your companies are putting back into this economy locally because those people live here. I mean, everybody that works for us is local resident within a 50-mile radius. I mean, we have some people that are driving from Monroe and other places, but you're absolutely right. You don't realize, just same with you, how many people you've given job. Right. And what you're able to do in the future. But one quick note you were saying before is I think, about the failing rate of entrepreneurs. Yeah. And what the biggest thing you got to have is, I start to hear this word grit. Yeah. And you got to grind. You have to have grit and you got to have grind. I mean, back in the day, you had to grind. Yeah. It was just you building the websites, doing all that coding, things like that. Yeah. Think of all that time you spent doing all that stuff and everything. Yeah. I mean, and that's really one of the reasons. 3 a.m. I just had to get up and get it done, man. The bank was coming. Yeah. The bank's calling either way. You start borrowing money for your business, you gotta be able to produce.
I think that gets to the grit that you're talking about a lot of times, like. With entrepreneurs, there's not optionality. Like optionality isn't a factor. No. Like but you mentioned failure, right? Yeah. this will sound kind of crazy, but I'm I'm very passionate about the topic and the study of failure.
Yeah.
Because like you said, and as statistics show, those early days, there's a lot of failures daily, and that mostly puts people out of the game because they're not, for whatever reason, they don't have the whatever to work through the failures. But I've learned, and I know you've learned, that failure is really just intel. It's just another piece of information for you to learn from. And failures become the building blocks.
100%, man.
But you just have to have that, a big enough why, I guess, back to this why question.
Well, you have to have enough grit.
Yeah.
When you have we'll get into these stories a little more later on, but I'm just like, the failures that we've talked about, the things that we learned, you and I have had these conversations in the past of the failures of what did you learn from that failure. And, it is very high percentage rate that people just give up. And I will tell you right now, man, no doubt in my mind, there are some crucial years. I'm 46 years old now. When I was 27, I thought for sure I was ready to throw in the towel. I was ready to give up. I remember telling my wife, this doesn't work. Soon as start producing some positive money, cash flow for us that we can live and not eat noodles. And I mean, people think when you open a business, oh, you're going to make all this money right off the rip and you're going to take long lunches and just sit around. Yeah. It's not that way at all when you're starting out. But if you got the grit to do it, you can push through. And I remember saying, if we're just going to sell it and just live a simple life and everything, and just kept on pushing through. And I've had those times multiple times over the years of, I've called people and been like, hey, you still in the market for buying a company? Because this week you can have it, okay? And they laugh about it and everything. And then
fire sale price. It's all yours.
Just come
the whole thing.
If you want it, come on down today. Let's make a deal. And looking back now from that, like you were saying, failure is, people are scared of failing, but it's all about pushing through the failure and learning from the failure. And it's one of the things that I talk about with the staff, with my staff now, my team, is don't use the word sorry. I can't stand when people say they're sorry. Especially when you're a server. Oh, I'm sorry, Mary, we messed up your yard. I learned a long time ago from a guy, he said, don't say sorry, Matt. Just, we messed up. We're going to take care of repairing it, and we're going to make sure we learn from this so we don't do it again. And I just yesterday had a client cancel with our firm and called them up and said, hey, I understand you're not happy. I want to learn from this experience. Literally yesterday had that conversation late in the day. Yeah. I said, I saw the email. You've been a client for 7 years. Yeah. I would like to know, what did we do to cause this? And they told me, and they were so appreciative of the fact that I took the time to call them and ask them, hey, what did we do wrong? We're not perfect. Right. No company is. You're not either. Right. I mean, nobody is. And if you think you are, you shouldn't be an entrepreneur. Because it's not going to work. Right. But that makes a big difference to people. Yeah. And everything.
Well, Matt, I know that we're going to dive deeper into the coming series.
Looking forward to this.
I can't wait to start hearing some of the stories about your biggest failures, like taking us right into there, and I'll share some of mine. But I think this is a good point for us to wrap up this episode. And hopefully you made it this far. You want to keep watching because we're going to get into the weeds. And, we're going to talk about failures in the early days and how those failures are really they're really the building blocks to growing to success and whatever you define success as. And I'm super excited to get into that.